Could I have everyone's attention? I think we're about ready to begin.
You really crawl.
It's a Democratic debate tonight for the 10th Norfolk District for the seat vacated by James Valley. July 30th, 2012, just after 7:30. Tonight we have our two candidates for the Democratic seat. We have Mr. Jeff Roy to my right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Peter Padula to my left.
Chief.
We're going to start with Mr. Padula. We also have our two media personnel here. We have Steve Sherlock from Franklin Matters, which is an online blog. We can read that, or you can subscribe to that. We also have Mr. Rick Holmes from Wicked Local and the Metro West Media News, who's an editor and opinionist with the paper. You can read his articles many, many times. He's published probably 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. So they will ask the questions. Our timekeepers over here, Mike Doherty, Bob Costello, Steve Gallo. So if we can begin, Mr. Padula is allowed to begin. That was decided by coin toss, and you have 5 minutes, Mr. Padula.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
My name is Peter Padula, and I'm running for the position of State Representative for the 10th Norfolk District for Franklin and Medway. It's fantastic to see everybody here, this democratic process that Jeff and I talk about all the time, and to see everybody get involved and get engaged. I wanted to say a few things. I want to first thank my wife, Lori, who's here. She's my biggest supporter, my best friend, and she's my biggest supporter that I have. Also, my son Peter is here. My son Bradley's here. And my son Daniel's lifting, but he'll probably be here a little bit later. But my wife is my Abigail Adams. I forgot to mention that. I want to go through, tell you a little bit about myself. You people, if you haven't seen it in the papers already, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm 52 years old. I was born and raised in Franklin. I've worked a number of jobs. I worked at the House of Pizza when I was 10 years old. I worked cleaning floors at Continental Floors and cleaning the bathrooms. I've worked for my uncle and his construction company, mixing cement and carrying bricks and blocks. I worked pumping gas at Marty's Exxon. I worked doing taxes in the center of Franklin for the H&R Block office. I've been very blessed with all the things I've done. I'm a 1977 grad of Franklin High School. My kids are also, and Peter is going to be a senior at Assumption College this year. My son Bradley's going to be a freshman at Bryant University. I'm also a graduate of Southern New England School of Law. I have practiced in Franklin. I'm an attorney. I've had a law practice for 22 years. I practiced my insurance practice. Padula Insurance Agency has been in town for 28 years. So collectively, I have about 50 years of experience in town dealing with people and members of the community. I have had the privilege of serving as a special assistant district attorney under Jerry Leone for 3 years over in Middlesex County. I've also had the privilege of serving on the Norfolk County Advisory Board. I represent Franklin now, and I have for the last several years. I've been their clerk, secretary, and I've also been the chairman of their finance committee. I've also been the past president of the Western Norfolk County Bar Association. I'm a former bar advocate for Milford District Court and Rentham District Court. I did that for 5 years when I started practicing. I was on the transition team for Mike Morrissey, in which we actually got to interview a lot of the people, the employees that would come on board to work for Mike Morrissey in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. So all those people that prosecute, a great number of them, I've had the privilege of being able to interview them, make recommendations to Mike Morrissey as to their employability. I was on the Student Government Association for 4 years at North Adams State College, which I loved. You know, people always say college is the best years of your life, and we tell that to my son Bradley, who's going now. And college has always been, was great for me. My life constantly gets better. I've been very blessed, but I will say the one thing I liked the most in college was student government. And I played ball and boxed as well while I was there, but student government was one of the most fun things that I did. And I did it for all 4 years, and I never missed a meeting. I was on the Franklin Charter Commission. I sat on the Franklin Charter Commission back a while ago, and I got to learn about appointed positions in town versus elected positions in town. It was a great experience, and even using some of those experiences now as I come through town hall and talk to people around the community, I find that they have questions regarding certain things, like for the size of the community that we are, for example, a $100 million business. I hear people mention things about the fact that we're an elected, we have an elected town treasurer, and there's some questions about whether or not that should be an appointed position. So those are things I got to learn. I also was a coach in baseball and soccer and basketball for 13 years. Because I had 3 kids, some seasons I had 3 kids each season. 3 teams. And then with 3 seasons, sometimes that would be 3, 6, 9. Hopefully not all the time, maybe 3, 2, and 2. But I had the beauty of, and the benefit of working with the kids over quite a long period of time. If I'm elected as your state representative, I will fight for every dollar. I will make sure that we keep our economy competitive. I will be accessible, and I will be an effective voice for you on Beacon Hill. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Padula. Okay, now we'd like to hear from Mr. Roy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. First of all, my name is Jeffrey Roy, and I'm honored to be a candidate for the Democratic nomination for the state representative seat for the 10th Norfolk District. I first of all want to thank my wife and my 3 children for putting up with this campaign. I can see that, if anything, a campaign does take a lot out of the family life, but you folks have been great, and I thank you very much for your support during this time. I also want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. I want to thank all of the people who helped me out in this campaign. It means a lot to me. And I want to say thank you to somebody who couldn't be here tonight, Lester Kwan, who's one of our campaign teammates, had quadruple bypass surgery last week. So he's a little out of commission these days. But he called me yesterday. That's the type of a campaign worker he is. He called me yesterday, said, "Jeff, I want you to know I'm thinking about you, and I want, Lester, you to know, I know you're watching at home tonight, I want you to know that we're all thinking about you and wish you a speedy recovery. We want you back on the campaign trail." I also want to recognize the years of service that Jim Valley gave to this town. I don't want to talk about this race until I thank him for his 18 years of service. He was a great friend to this community, and it's clear from my visits with the residents of Franklin that he was well-loved, and he deserves all the respect and honor and admiration that he got. And I'll tell you, it would truly be my honor to be his successor in this race. Now I'm running for this race because I'm committed to public service. Public service is a way to pay back. It's that adage that to those whom much has been given, much is expected. My family, my friends, and our community has benefited much from public programs, education, student loans, public safety, roads, etc. And these have all helped us help ourselves. And when you have these programs, you want to make sure that these opportunities are there for the next group of people coming along, our generational responsibility. And when I learned that Jim Valley was stepping down, I knew it was my time to step up. We need an experienced leader to continue Jim's good work. We need someone to protect local aid to our district. And we need someone who can hit the ground running after the election. Ladies and gentlemen, I am that candidate. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. My wife and I have raised 3 beautiful children, all educated in the Franklin Public Schools. I spent 26 years as a lawyer working hard to obtain justice for men and women in the court systems. Being in a courtroom as a lawyer for people is a great training ground for what we will face up on Beacon Hill. And that work will translate very well up on Beacon Hill. For 14 years, I had the honor and privilege of working with probably one of the greatest teams in education, and that was my work on the building committee and the school committee here in Franklin. And it's unique to serve on a school committee in the birthplace of Horace Mann. Everyone is committed to that ideal of public education and giving the best to our children in this community. In 2010, that school system was touted as a spotlight district in the United States for its high return on investment in education. We were rated as highly efficient on all 3 of the productivity metrics covered by that study. 3 years earlier, our community was rated as one of the top 10 places to raise a family in the United States. And that, they called out our educational system as one that was way above average. We've introduced innovative programs in our system which make Franklin a model school system in the state. And I was proud to be a part of that team that's going to deliver a new high school to this community within the next 2 years. And in my tenure on the school committee, we introduced 2 new middle schools, 2 new elementary schools, and an early childhood development center. We've always been committed to high performance and efficiency, and I was proud to work on that team. Now I serve on Franklin's Town Council, taking on more global community tasks, taking on public safety, roads, elder services, facilities, and other issues that make this community great. In each of these arenas, I have been tested. I've been called upon to make very difficult decisions over the 14 years, town budgets, school budgets, building committee budgets. And working on those issues have made a great difference for this community. I'm overwhelmed by the support we've gotten in this race to date, and I know that we have to work together to make this race and this system effective, and I want to bring that spirit, energy, and compassion to Beacon Hill. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Holmes, I suppose if you would like to start, that would be excellent.
I was going to let Mr. Sherlock go
That's
first.
fine, if you've decided, Mr. Sherlock, that's fine also, thank you.
It's fine. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for the opportunity to ask the questions. Candidates, good luck tonight. First question was submitted actually by the community through the Franklin Matters website and/or the Facebook page. If elected, what changes would you propose to help the commuters from Franklin and Medway afford to get to Boston for work?
Am I first?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad that I got that question right off the bat. Being a 28-year commuter on the rail, I think I have a bit of knowledge of that system. I think that we should do everything in our power to encourage more people to use the rails, and I think because that will contribute to taking vehicles off the roads, we'll have lower emissions, we won't wear down our roads that much. So I think we should be doing everything as a state to encourage people to commute by rail. If that means we have to subsidize the tickets to encourage people to commute, then I think we should go ahead and do that. I think we should make parking more accessible for people at the commuter rail, offer more spaces. Let's not charge for parking at these spaces. Let people park for free so that we encourage them to leave their cars here. I know on the master plan committee, we've actually talked about introducing bike lockers at the train stations to encourage people to bring their bikes and give them a safe place to lock them up. I think we have to do better in terms of collecting fares on the commuter rail system. We should be policing every aspect, encouraging the purchase of monthly tickets, perhaps offer a greater discount to get people to purchase these monthly tickets. Whatever it takes, let's fill those trains, let's conserve energy, and let's protect the environment.
Thank you very much. Padula, you want to respond?
The query is how to make it more affordable for people from Franklin and Medway to use the trains. Well, I think simply put, the way to do that would be to see if in fact there's any more assistance that could come down from the legislature. You know, I think that part of the problem that we're having with any money that comes in from like our tolls or the big dig, you know, we need to make sure that it's self-funding. And to the extent that it's not, we need to see if we can get more funding from the state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Padula. Okay, gentlemen, next question, I believe.
Sure. Yes, one of the most hotly debated issues in the legislature this year has been a sentencing reform bill that denies parole for certain offenders, habitual offenders, and also reduces some mandatory minimum sentences. I'd like to know how each of you feel about that legislation and if there should be more done to reform our criminal sentencing.
Well, am I going first on every question or just alternate?
Okay, Mr. Padula?
You're talking about the three strikes bill, I believe, which it
Yes.
says that it's 3 felonies. There's no discretion on the part of the judges. It's my understanding the governor's proposed some legislation to try to soften the blow on the 3 strikes law. In other words, if the judges have no discretion, and the claim is that they have some, then the governor wants to be able to put some discretion into the bill. I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea. being an attorney dealing in the criminal defense arena, sometimes there are certain things on the felony side that may not give rise to the three strikes, where the three strikes law should apply. So I think the problem is you need to take these criminal cases on a case-by-case basis. I think allowing the judges a little more latitude would probably be the better way to handle it, so that they can look at it, if it's a third strike situation, and then make a determination based on the nature of the offense, the amount of time that it could carry, the nature of the prior offenses, and take all those into consideration, those factors, and then make the decision that way. So I think that maybe more discretion in the judge's hands would be the appropriate way to handle that. Thank you.
Mr. Roy?
I understand that earlier today that the governor's proposed changes were rejected by the legislature, so it's going to go back to his desk probably tomorrow to make him make a decision as to what he wants to do. In any event, I think given what is going on with the bill as written, I think it's going to be revisited by the legislature. It's certainly going to be a bill that's going to lead to a number of appeals, because it takes away a lot of the discretion that was afforded to judges. It's also going to lead to some prison overcrowding as a result of this, and I think it's going to end up costing the Commonwealth more money to implement this system. So I think it needs to be revisited. The SJC has already weighed in. The Supreme Judicial Court has written a letter to the governor indicating some of the problems with that legislation. That being said, I do believe that we need to be tough on crime. It seems that a parole board error is what led to the implementation of this bill. And one thing that causes me concern is that too often we implement or try to pass bills as a reaction to some event that occurred. And I think we need to step back and think through these bills before we try to rush them in at the last minute. Tomorrow the legislative session ends, and we're trying to cram too much into a small period of time.
Thank you.
All right, our next question, again from the community. Local officials here often complain to voters that costly state mandates tie their hands and prevent them from making common sense fiscal policies for the town. What will you do as state rep to remove burdensome state mandates and untie the local officials' hands?
Steve, that sounds like a question I would have submitted. I have been one, certainly seeing on the school committee, unfunded mandates was probably the most difficult thing we had to contend with on a regular basis. I think as a legislature, we have an obligation and we have a duty, before we pass a bill, to do an analysis of what it's going to cost to implement that bill. In that respect, I would encourage the submission of a bill that's going to require some mandate on some local community, first be sent to the auditor's office. The auditor can review the bill and provide an analysis to the legislature as to what it's going to cost. Simple things like, I can recall some of the bills that came before us at the school committee. There was a measure to require school districts to buy a $60,000 machine to clean mouthpieces on woodwind instruments. We've been hit with mandates to measure BMI of students. We've been hit with mandates to implement training for using defibrillators. These are good measures and well-intentioned measures, but the thought about how to pay them in a struggling community hasn't been implemented, so we need to take better care to track those and use the auditor's office for that purpose. Thank you.
Chief, unfunded mandates and getting around the town hall and talking to people in the community seem to be a problem. One of the things, and in talking to the school superintendent, is the issue regarding, for example, anti-bullying. So they put this mandate in place, and they have no money no teeth for it. There's no money to support the mandate. So I think that, simply put, if we're going to have any mandates that are given back to the communities,
they need to run through a committee to make sure that they're funded properly before they're handed down. Because not only do they cost us money, but it's all the time that goes into it as well. So that, for example, the anti-bullying piece is dealt with by the principal. So that's a lot of extra work for him to do it, and it's a great program. My son Bradley was on the anti-bullying committee here in school. It's a wonderful program, but you can't put these programs in place and not have the funding in line to go with it. So if you're going to put it in place, make sure the money's there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. It's difficult for any state rep, particularly a freshman state rep, to leave a mark at the State House. In what area would you like to have an impact, and where would you start?
Well, I think that that's something I talked to Jim Valley back a while ago, and he says that anyone, for the first 2 years, you're going to be carrying the dummies. When I played football in high school for Coach Leone, I didn't start playing until my junior year because my father wouldn't let me play until I grew bigger than he did. And my whole junior year, even though I started, I got to carry the dummies. So make no mistake, we can say everything we want to say here in front of you guys, but for the first 2 years, we're carrying the dummies. We're going to have to get around, meet people, know people, get the lay of the land. Find out what's going on here in the community, what's important to people. Because you know what's important to people? Chapter 70 funds, Chapter 90 funds, local aid, jobs, the economy. That's what's important. We can talk to you all night about all these other issues, but that's what it's going to come back to. So if I'm lucky enough to get in the State House, I'm going to work on things like building the bonds, building bridges, which I already have. So we're very fortunate in my position as a lawyer and being on the Norfolk County Advisory Board and being a district attorney and being on the transition team for Mike Morrissey. I've been fortunate enough to be able to get around and meet with people. And these people they're good to work with, and they know these are no quick fixes to the problems that we're going to have, but make no mistake, we're carrying the dummies for the first 2 years. Having said that, we're going to make sure our voices are heard. If there's any issues that the people have locally, I'm going to make sure I get around and talk to people. You'll always be able to get me, and I'll let you know on Beacon Hill. Your voice will be heard by me on Beacon Hill. Thank you.
I think the most important priority for me as a freshman legislature would be maintaining levels of local aid that Franklin has come to rely on in forming its budgets. I have an intimate working knowledge of the local government here in Franklin. I will develop a very intimate knowledge of the local government in Medway. I've met with several of the officials there, and I plan to keep on meeting with the officials there. Local aid to the communities is priority number one. And there's some talk about revisiting Chapter 70 in the foundation budget, which would directly impact both Franklin and Medway. And we have to keep on top of that. Education certainly would be a priority of mine. It's been a priority all my life. The needs of public education are important. I would ask the Speaker for an appointment to the Education Committee. And finally, we have a beautiful new high school that's in the works, and it's going to start construction, and I think it's important that our state representative make sure that that building gets funded completely and on time, and that we have the operational capacity to keep that building staffed with very high-performing teachers and staff in the building. Thank you.
Continuing on the local funding, one of the terms that's been coming up over the last couple of years is OPEB for the other pension and employee benefits. So, and Franklin's not alone in this. Many communities are faced with an underfunding requirement, how they're going to bring it up to a funding state. I believe the legislature will have some say in that, so I'd just like to get your position on, in your role, what's your stand on this?
Well, I would say that the state has to show leadership on this issue. Not only the local communities have unfunded liabilities, but the state currently has an unfunded pension liability of $20 billion and an unfunded OPEB liability of $15 billion. I think the local municipalities are going to watch closely how the state monitors its activities. Here in Franklin, we have an unfunded OPEB liability, and what we're doing is each year dedicating some of the free cash, some of the money that we have in our budget, actually budgeting money to build up that fund. The state has allowed us to create a trust fund, to contribute on an annual basis to build that reserve. The worst thing that we can do as a local community and the worst thing that we can do as a state is to punt on this issue. We can't pass this unfunded liability onto another generation. We have to take responsibility for it. We created it, and we need to find a mechanism to fund it so that it can fully sustain itself. One other thing I would like to note, it's a lot of people talk about pensions and they're extravagant. Statistically, it's 77% of the Commonwealth's contribution is for these unfunded liabilities as opposed to the pensions themselves. So that's where we have to do our work, on these unfunded portions. Thank you.
You know, working with county government, which is, we have an OPEB issue, and I learned about it there at the county level. And so we have it here at the town, we have it at the county, and we have it at the state. In a meeting with the town administrator recently, he said one of the big issues, the big problems that they have is OPEB. And while we have a small sinking fund set aside now, it is a big problem. We have it locally, county, and statewide. So I think what I would suggest is that there are very few communities in the state that actually have started these OPEB funds to start to deal with this issue. I think what the state needs to do is to step up to the plate. Let's get a fund going and have some portion of money that goes into this fund, so it'll help not only us as we've started our fund, but other communities as well to jumpstart and put money into these funds, because this is not going away. And what happens is, as more people retire and go into this fund, there's not enough money now, and as we bring more people on, that obligation keeps getting higher. So that we need to see if the state will step up, put a plan in place, let's get some money started so we can get this fund and get it growing faster than we have now. Thank you.
Different subject. What, if anything, should the state be doing about illegal immigration?
Illegal immigration. That's a question I think that needs to fall on the federal government. I think that for the state government to get involved with that at this point is inappropriate. In fact, even to the extent, like in Rhode Island, that the states have gotten involved, the federal government's gotten involved, it's been a real problem. So I think what I would do with regard to immigration issues is I think it needs to be something done on a countrywide basis. Let it be passed that way. Bring it into the cities and the states and let us deal with it ourselves after, in fact, the country puts a plan in place to deal with this issue. See, the problem is, this issue didn't start overnight. We have a lot of people in here. We got a lot of groups of people in here. We have people who have come over who are not citizens, people come over and have kids who are now citizens. So what I think you need to do is you need to put a system in place that treats everybody fairly. So if they were born here, they may be treated differently than someone that just moved here, as opposed to someone who's an alien that's not here properly in the first instance. So I think that I would take the lead from the federal government, let them put something in place, and then deal with it going forward.
I'm going to have to say, on that point, I would agree with my opponent with regard to the role of the federal government. This is truly a federal issue and should be handled at that level. That being said, I know that if an illegal immigrant gets into the court system and is charged with a crime, they're advised that a conviction could result in their deportation. Whether that deportation eventually takes place, again, is a matter for the federal government. I think the government needs to come up with a plan to deal with this, but this is one of those political hot potatoes that the two sides can't come together and agree on. And we're not going to get this problem solved while we have groups that disagree. And I think that's one of the areas that I've called for in my running, is that we need more civility in government, and we need people coming together for the common good. We could solve this illegal alien problem if we would just get together and work out a plan to address how to handle those folks who are here now, whether to offer some amnesty or whether to just send as many home as possible. These are issues that we talk about for 10, 15 years, but we're not going to get anything done unless we come together as a group.
Given the current event having relocated here because of power outage on the other side of town, what's your position on the governance of the utilities, their service rates and performance?
If you read Wednesday's Milford Daily News, you probably saw how I feel about National Grid. And Peter was joking with me before the debate that he blamed this change on something nasty that I might have said about National Grid.
I did.
But I said to Peter, they saw him running with a book of matches running down Grove Street earlier.
Watch out for that 3 strikes.
This is an unacceptable problem. I feel like I'm in the Flintstones sometimes when I see these power outages. It's a beautiful day out there. We should not be experiencing power outages. I'll sit in my house, and if it's a bit of wind is occurring or if it starts to rain, I'm wondering if we're going to lose power. Well, at the council level, we asked National Grid to come and speak at the council chambers. I cannot describe that as a well-informed presentation. Then we asked for a report. By their own admission, we have very poor equipment servicing Franklin. We have issues involving animals on the wires, and we have issues with trees. But National Grid has not come up with an action plan. I am going to submit that we'll try to do something at the town council level, but I believe we need work from the state level. And I can tell you National Grid will be on my radar should I get to the State House in November and start working in January.
Jeff had called me and said, hey, by the way, he says, the electricity's out over on Pond Street, so we can't do our debate tonight, but we might have access to at the council chambers. And it's so funny because it just comes on the heel of the article and the meeting before the town council. We need an action plan from these people. The plan that was put forward by them and the town council, and Jeff and other members of the town council were keen to point out, was lacking. We need closer oversight. They must do a better job, and the rates have to be competitive, obviously, but I do agree this is something that needs to be taken care of on a state level. We're going to bellyache all we want down here below, but we need to let our state legislators know so that they're in a position to try to hold these people's feet to the fire so these issues don't happen. Thank you, Chief.
I believe you both may know, college has never been more expensive. And even in the state system, in public higher education, the contribution to the University of Massachusetts and the other state colleges and universities has declined over the last 10 or so years, especially compared to inflation. Just this year, I got a bill the other night, and the and the cost of a UMass tuition for the next year has gone up $500. Should the state legislature be doing something about this, and if so, what?
I think the state legislature definitely needs to be doing something about it. When I went to school, and I graduated from North Adams State College, and I'm very happy back in 1981, I think I got through all 4 years with less than $10,000 was the cost. Thank God I didn't have any loans because I borrowed money from my uncle, so he was my bank going through college and part of law school as well. But as I look at tuition bills for my son who's going to Assumption and my son who's going to Bryant, it is absolutely unbelievable. Thank God they're smart like their mother, and they get money to go to school, because other than that, it would be near impossible to afford it. The tuition bills are through the roof. An average school is 55,000. And Jeff knows because he's got the kids in school as well. So I think the legislature does need to take a look at this and find out why these rates have gone up so fast. How is it possible that a tuition back 20 years ago is now 5 times the amount? Tuition and fees, of course, because everything goes up commensurate. So I think that even the University of Mass systems, which is still a great value, keeps creeping up. So I think we need to form a committee. We need to look at this issue, and it's a big issue, and start to try to let these people know we're going to follow these things closely to try to make sure that we make these things affordable for people, because we're going to price people right out of the market.
I think this is one of the issues that's probably the most important to getting America out of the economic mess that it's in today. The education of our youth is probably the most important issue of our day. We know from studies that it is a college education that will provide you with a greater level of earnings. And we can't deprive our citizens of the opportunity to get an education and to compete in the global economy. It used to be 30 years ago that you could go to school, you could graduate or not graduate from high school, there would be a factory job waiting for you that would provide you with a very good wage, would provide you with a pension, would provide you with health insurance, and you could stay there for 30, 35 years, retire from that job, and have a very good retirement. Those jobs don't exist anymore. Those jobs are now being done by robots and machines. What we need today is we need to train people to talk to the computers that are running those robots and those machines. And that requires more education than a high school level. How can we give that opportunity to folks if we have skyrocketing college costs? Last year was the first of my 2 opportunities in the 9-year stretch that I had 2 in college in the same year. $112,000 in tuition. That is not manageable for many families at all. I still wonder how we got out of that year. We need to do a study of what's happening to college costs, because when you have people talking about whether or not a college education is worth what you pay for it, that's a horrible direction for us to go. So I would urge the legislature to take action and study this problem.
Thank you.
Here's one of the expensive college educations that just completed. She was lucky, though. She found a job, so I'm very happy.
2-part question. What do you see as Franklin's key issue at the state level, and how do you plan to address it?
Well, I'll tell you, Franklin's key issue, like the key issue for everyone in Massachusetts, and like the key issue for everyone in the United States of America, is getting jobs and the economy on track. And a second prong of that is keeping our education system vibrant and viable for everyone who participates in the system. Thirdly, keeping local aid on track in this community to support the great programs that we have. Now, let me talk about jobs in the economy. I know there's an innovation bill that is before the legislature that would provide economic opportunities in communities, trying to bring in grants to fund businesses in the community. They want to create a MassWorks infrastructure program to get infrastructure funding for these programs, science and technology research and development grants. These are the types of opportunities that we should be exploring. Let's bring some of these businesses out here to Franklin. We've attracted some great biotechnical companies. We have a biotechnical area in the community. These are the types of things that we should be encouraging and bringing to this community. And I think once we get the economy on track, We will be bringing the jobs to the community, will help in the local aid to our community, and this will help build and make Franklin and Medway great places to work and live.
You know, meeting with Jeff Nutting, our town administrator, I asked him, what are the important things to Franklin? What are the issues that are important to us? And he said 3 things: making sure we have our balanced budget, making sure that we keep up our roads, and the OPEB problem. So with regard to the balanced budget, now, we've done a good job this year and we have a balanced budget. But what that comes back around to is our Chapter 70 and our Chapter 90 funds. We have to make sure that we can get every dollar we can from the state. Jim Valley's done a great job, an incredible job. However, we have to keep that work up. There's a lot of money that he brings into the community, and he has brought into the community, so that's an issue. The other issue is OPEB. So if we're going to help the towns, our local towns, in order to help, we should get some money from the state to start an OPEB fund, so that the state actually starts putting money in to our fund so we can build that fund up and make sure that we get that nut covered. Because that's not going to go away. That's a continuing problem that we face. So that's what I see as the problem. Thank you.
With your permission, Chief, I would like to ask this question to Jeff Roy first, just so that we aren't always asking the same order.
I'm intrigued.
Fine with,
I'm intrigued.
You can, go ahead, if you want to go out of order, that's fine. Go ahead.
The voters of Massachusetts will face 3 questions on the ballot this fall. Could you tell us what they are and your position on them?
That's a good question. Honestly, I can't tell you. I know one of them, I'm not even going to guess. I can't tell you what questions are on the ballot.
We'll give Peter a chance.
No, I think I'd like to hear what questions are on the ballot, too. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just so you know, we're focusing on the
I'll
campaign.
I'll help you out. The first is medical
Thank you, Peter.
We're focusing on our campaigns, Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah.
medical marijuana, the assisted suicide, and the right to repair.
and Mr. Holmes is still directing that to Mr. Roy?
I'll let them each take a shot.
Well,
Have anything to say about them?
you know, I haven't studied each of these questions enough to render an opinion. And one thing I know, if you don't know the answer to a question, the honest answer is say you don't know. Before I vote on a ballot question, I can assure you that I read the pamphlet that the Secretary of State's office sends home to me. I will read it in this case. These questions just got certified to be on the ballot about 2 weeks ago. And truthfully, my focus for since April 15th has been becoming the next state representative for Franklin and Medway. And I would do an injustice if I even attempted to sweet-talk you into some position on issues that I haven't studied. And I'm going to tell you that as a state representative, I'm not going to vote on the bill, and I'm not going to take action on anything that comes before me that I don't understand and that I haven't researched and considered carefully. I never did that when I was on the school committee. I never did it when I'm on the town council, and I won't do it tonight.
I'm going to give you a shorter version of that. Since April 16th, when I found out. And quite frankly, we're focusing on running the campaign and winning the campaign. So those issues, when the time comes, we'll make sure we do the appropriate research and then vote on them accordingly. Thank you.
Picking up on the fact that at least you have been devoting an awful lot of your time to your local campaigns, and based on the flyers that have been left on the doors, et cetera, you've certainly been walking through the neighborhoods. What's the one thing that going door to door really helps your campaign?
Have to be.
Well, to both, but
The,
equally.
I was talking to Jim Valley a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know what? The most fun I have on this campaign is getting around to meet people. It's just absolutely fantastic. I get to meet people. I'm 52 years old. My family's grew up in this community. I get to meet people who know my family from 60, 70, 80 years ago. I meet people in their 80s who tell me stories about my uncle who built something for them, or my uncle who did some steps for them, or how they knew my mother or my grandfather. And the stories they share, you know, I sat down with Mrs. Remillard. One of my sons plays played baseball for Mr. We call him Remillard. And I sat down with her. She's 87 years old, and she told me how she met her husband, you know, on Union Street, and how they were married, and she moved into the same house and lived there till a couple years ago, in her, like 84, 85, and moved into Central Park Terrace. She told me that, you know, her husband's not doing well, and that she goes to visit him every day. And you know something? I get to take something out of that. So this process allows me to go and meet with those people and connect with them, and I hope that if I'm in the position to be state rep, I expect them to give me a phone call. I'll go out and visit them. And I told them even now, you need me for something, you have any questions, give me a call. I'm gonna come out and visit with you. Any questions that you have. So it's that connecting with people has been invaluable. So, thank you.
I can tell you that some of the most valuable time spent campaigning has been the door-to-door visits. You know, I've asked folks to come along with me, and they're frightened. They're saying, I don't want to go because people are going to close the door, they're going to yell, they're going to be offended. Well, you know something? I've only had, of the 750 doors I've knocked on so far, only 2 times have I felt unwelcome. It was the one guy who the door was open, and I heard a yell from inside the house and said, nobody's home. So I looked to Lester and I said, Lester, did you say that? And then another guy who came to the top of the stairs, he was elderly and he didn't want to come down the stairs, he just gave me one of these. But that's not bad. People want to talk. They want to share what concerns they have. And they want to be included in this process. They want to feel like you're listening to them. And going out and talking to people in their home where they're comfortable and you're in their space, they control the conversation. And I have learned so much from that experience that I'm going to continue that up until Election Day, and I'm going to continue that after Election Day. This is going to be a part of my operation if I'm elected as the next state representative here in Franklin and Medway, because there's rich resources out there, and to be a true representative, you have to speak with your constituents.
As you both knock on doors and talk to your potential constituents, I'm guessing from time to time you'll run into somebody who says, why would you want to go there? Like it or not, Beacon Hill does not have a great reputation with an awful lot of Massachusetts citizens. You've had the State House of Representatives that had 3 speakers in a row indicted. There is a feeling that the legislature is unresponsive and potentially corrupt. What can you do about that perception, or what can the state do about that perception that persists about its legislature?
That is a question and a conversation that comes up frequently. I think my business partner was the first one to bring up that question when I told him I was thinking about this office. I said, you can either be a part of the solution or let the problem continue. I'm 50 years old. I'm rather set in my ways. I can see some folks in the background. They have no argument with that. I am going to be true to myself, and I believe that I want to be part of the solution. I am so excited about the opportunity to get up onto Beacon Hill. I will bring the same skill set that I brought to my school committee work, to my town council work, to my family life, to my legal work. I'll bring that skill set with me to Beacon Hill, and I'll work to improve the integrity of that building, because we're doing the people's business, and they want people who truly care about them, and care about what they're doing. And no one has ever called into question my love or my passion for government work. They may disagree with some of the decisions I've made and some of the issues I've championed, but no one has ever called into question my passion for that issue. And that's what I will bring to Beacon Hill, and hopefully it will improve the climate in that State House. But I can't do it alone. I will hopefully bring that spirit to the other members of the chamber.
You know, I heard that same issue in talking to people. They said, you know, the last 3 speakers, we've had a few issues, you know. And I think sometimes I wonder if that sometimes you become a lawyer, you know, like Jeff and I are, and I wonder if you don't get smarter, but you kind of go back the other way. These guys were lawyers. They have great jobs. We've got people who are indicted and doing prison time. And it's such a privilege and an honor to be able to serve the people. And it's so insulting to me, after going through all the work and getting through law school, and I'm licensed in Massachusetts, I practice in Mass and Rhode Island, I've had 2 bars under my belt, to go through all that hard work and then take it and throw it away for a little bit of money. You know, I've been in business, both my businesses, for a combined total of 50 years. These stripes aren't going to change now. I've got a great reputation. I'm looking forward to being able to get in there, get on Beacon Hill, show them what my stripes are like, and they're not going to change, be able to make a positive difference. Thank you.
Continuing on the campaign trail, clearly your feet will get tired from time to time. So how do you plan to use either websites or other social media tools or something else to assist your campaign?
You know, I saw that as one of the questions that you had. That's mine, right, to start? And I know that we'll use it, you know. We're going to use the website to provide some information, and we'll use some other social media tools as well. I'm not that savvy on that stuff. I think Jeff's a little more savvy than I am. I'm hoping to surround myself with some better people who are more savvy than me. But
I'll help you out.
Thank you. Oh, and he didn't tell you there was a third person that gave him a bad response too, and that was me when he came to my assumption. But you know what? They help, but nothing replaces to going to that house and knocking on that door, you know, and seeing those people face to face and having them call you. There was one person up at Central Park Terrace. She wasn't home, so I left the card in. I was shooting up to work the next morning, and the phone rang, and she called me and left a message. So I called her back, and apparently I got her coming out of the shower, and she said, I wanted to call you and talk to you. I saw your card, you know, and I was pleased to see that. Let me talk. Who are you, and who's your family? And I got to connect with her again. And I'm telling you, no matter where this process goes, I get to connect with all these people. I should be paying for this. It is so much fun getting involved with people and talking to them, finding out where they live, where they're from, where they were born, you know. And, you know, as I went to go to the senior center, I noticed that most of the people there are women. So, you know, I hope to be around a long time for my wife, but I tell you, these guys don't last as long as the women. But their stories are fantastic, you know, about where they come, school. So that's my thoughts on that. Thanks.
One of the things that's remarkable today is that there are so many mediums out there to communicate with people. We communicate by telephone, we communicate by computer, we communicate by texting, we talk face-to-face. Some people don't like to talk face-to-face. I've made a commitment to reach out to people in whatever way they feel comfortable with, because my goal is to reach as many of the voters in Medway and Franklin as possible between now and September 6th, and hopefully from September 6th to November 6th. I have a very vibrant website, a very vibrant Facebook page. I use Twitter, and Sunday night we were experimenting with a Google Hangout. I've been wondering how best to communicate with the 18 to 25-year-olds. There's a lot of them out there. And so I have a group that's working with me, and we're going to do a Google Hangout, which is a town hall that everybody can be sitting wherever they are in the world, and they can talk in a group of 9 or 10 people, and we're going to have a town hall forum, and then we're going to play that back for people in the community. We're running videos on YouTube. We will take whatever medium, however you want to communicate with this campaign, it's wide open. I want to talk to you. I want to hear from you. I want to know what's on your mind, and I won't just rely on shoe leather to do that.
At the risk of some awkward answers, I'd like you to compare yourself to your opponent and tell us why you would be more qualified for this position.
Well, I will say, I think the level of experience and the knowledge of local government that I bring to the table is probably the most significant difference between myself and my opponent. We're both attorneys, so you can check that off. None of us are going to get points for that. I don't think we would get points for that even if neither one of us were.
Minus points. Minus points.
People don't like lawyers unless it's their lawyer. When they're in trouble, boy, you're the best thing that's ever happened. But truly, the level of experience, serving on a school committee for 10 years and serving 9 years as the chair of that body has given me a skill set that I don't think my opponent can match in that regard. Being able to serve on the town council has given me an intimate knowledge of what goes on in this community. Serving as the chair of the master plan committee has given me an intimate knowledge of the future of this community and where this community wants to go and where it should go. And those are very important characteristics that I think I'll bring to the table and I think will be very effective in helping me hit the ground running when I get to Beacon Hill.
Being an attorney obviously helps because there's a morass of paper that you have to read when you become a state legislator. So, and you have to have a thirst and a hunger for the knowledge. I mentioned earlier back in college for 4 years I was in student government, and it was one of the most fun things that I did in school while I did many other things. My position on the Franklin Charter Commission back a while ago gave me an intimate knowledge of how our government works here, appointed positions, elected positions, how many people on the council. That experience was like my primer for getting involved with our governmental piece. The Norfolk County Advisory Board, I get to sit on with 27 other towns and cities and hear their problems, hear about their problems with their town administrators, with their police chiefs, with OPEB, with collective bargaining. So I get a good amount of information about what the other towns go through. So it's helpful to me to be able to bring that back here and or bring it into Boston when I'm dealing at that level. My position as a special assistant district attorney allowed me to be able to represent the state as a prosecutor, gave me good experience on dealing with, on a pro bono basis, on a volunteer basis, representing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Being on the transition team for Mike Morrissey, dealing with people that work with that work in the courthouses and interviewing those people. And on the Norfolk County Advisory Board, we deal with the courthouses. We deal with county engineering. We deal with making sure that, thank you.
That's the quickest 10 seconds I ever see go by.
Who's manning that
If you all
clock?
stop at 90, I'll turn the sound off.
I thought it was a fire alarm. I thought we were going to be losing power
Yeah,
here.
no.
too.
Taking a slightly different tack, taxes currently are one of the primary forms of revenue for the government. How should the business of providing government services be funded? So you can elaborate on the taxes or fees or thereof.
Come on.
Government services. Right now, government services are provided by our tax dollars. So is the query, where else should the money come from? Is that your query? That's your question?
Yes, basically, yeah. What's your position on taxes overall, And are there other alternatives to taxes and fees that we already know?
No, I don't think there's right now, I don't think there's any other alternatives to taxes the way they are. And we're doing pretty good in this state because we've met our quotas and our taxes have come down. So I don't see any dramatic changes to the tax structure right now. I think that part of your question, I think, talked about whether there should be any fee-based issues. And you can do fees. If there are fees that are consistent with people that use certain things like the Mass Pike or user fees for the dump, those kinds of things. I think those user fees are fine. So if there are certain segments of things that people, that we provide for people that we can break into user fee situations, I'd be in favor of considering that. But from a tax standpoint right now, with the way our budget is, I think that our tax system, the way it is now, is not going to change. I wouldn't make any recommendations to change it dramatically at this point.
Taxes are the cost that we pay to live in a civilized society. It's a fact of life. It's something that's necessary. We love the roads we drive on. We love the schools we attend, or at least we do after we get out of them. We love government services, and they have to be paid for. I'm not a big fan of fees. I think that's a trend that has occurred over the last few years, and I think it's a bad way for us to go down. We have generational responsibilities to one another, and I think this was hit clearly home with me when one of my daughters came home with her first paycheck. And she said, "Why am I paying Social Security tax? Why am I paying Medicare? I'm 17 years old." I said, "You're paying that bill now to take care of folks who paid the bill for the generations before them. And another generation will pay that bill when you come along. I would prefer that we keep this system in place. It works. Let's make it fair. I think we can do better in collecting some of our taxes. I can't believe that to this day we do not collect a sales tax on online sales. It has crippled small businesses that are selling the same products that people can go and buy online. $335 million in sales tax revenues are lost because we don't tax that revenue. That's just one example of how we can do better, and I have others I'd love to talk about later on tonight.
I'll give you a chance to talk a little more about that on a related topic. The state's transportation system is in bad shape. A commission a couple of years ago estimated it had $20 billion worth of unfunded repair needs. The governor has called for a, quote, adult conversation on transportation finance next year. What would you bring to that conversation?
Well, I would bring to it emphasis on the need to correct these issues. I mean, I talked earlier tonight about the need to stabilize our public transportation system. I think public transportation has a lot of answers to problems that we face as a society as a whole, and I think we need to do more to enhance that system and make it more attractive so that people use it and put less burdens on our roads. I think we can make better efforts at collecting the taxes that we already impose. I'd like for us to look at the tax credits that we give out on a regular basis. I know that the state gave companies and individuals $171 million in tax credits in 2011 alone. I am in favor of tax credits, but I'd like to know where those tax credits are going and what tangible benefit is being returned to our local communities and our state as a whole. So I'd like to see an analysis. I've seen the detail about what tax credits are there, but I'd now like to see an analysis of what tangible benefits have been received. And recently, there was some discussion of tax haven abuse. And I think we really have to look at whether people are paying their fair share of taxes by sending their money offshore. These are areas that we can locate and identify to make corrective action and increase our collections and take the burden off of our middle-class families.
The transportation is very important, and I think that it's important for us to be able to take advantage of using our transportation to its fullest so that we can become more green and make sure that we take less stress off our roads, which seems to be a substantial problem in the state, our roads and bridges. I think that it's a good start by the governor. I think it's a good idea to get people to the table. I think that the problem is these problems are so big that it takes a while to kind of get them rolling. So I think what we've done is we've got a good start, get people to the table, start talking about the issues to make sure that we keep public transportation viable. Our city, we got 2 T stops in Franklin. There are people that T all over the place to get into the city, and it's fantastic. And that's what makes Boston such a great place. So I think that we're on the right track. We need to keep moving forward with it and make sure that we try to get some good legislation out of this going forward. Thank you.
One more question each?
One more?
question each, please?
Okay, so one for each, or?
One
for each,
question.
One for each.
All right. So in terms of, I guess, kind of a summary question, if we haven't already talked about it before, what are you going to be doing between now and, assuming you're elected, to serve Franklin and/or Medway in the legislature? How else are you going to prepare?
Prepare now.
Prepare to serve Franklin or Medway?
You know,
You've already
any-
talked about a number of things you're doing, but just kind of summarize how you're going to prepare.
Well, first of all, and I know Jeff is going to say the same thing, a part of what we're going to be doing to prepare is trying to prepare to win, so after September 6th, we have something else to do. But what I'll be doing is what I've already been doing, is going around and meeting everybody. Everybody that will meet and talk to me, I will meet. Town administrator I've met in town here, school superintendent, town clerk, town treasurer, fire department, police. We'll be meet with anyone that will meet with us, and all the committees and all the subcommittees. We'll be talking to all those people to try to get input from them. It's amazing the kind of things you hear from these people in these groups. And when we sat down and compiled our list to be able to meet with all these people, there's like 50, 55 in Medway and like 70 in Franklin. So that's part of the process, again, that I really like, to be able to get around and talk to all these people, find out what's important to them, and be able to bring that back so that when I talk to the town administrators or the superintendents, I have an idea. I'll give you, for an example. I met with the union president for the schools. And one of the things that caused me pause for concern was that we have a system in place right now that you get professional status after 3 years. Since the Ed Reform Act back in '92, you can get professional status. And what that means is I call it tenure light, if you would. So what happens is the school administration says that that's important for us to have, and I think it is. I talked to the superintendent because you can weed out certain teachers. But what happens is I think we have to balance that, because if you let them go within 3 years, then they're going to bring new people in. And what happens is they go to another school system, and we don't have continuity in teachers. So I think it's important for us to pay attention to those things. We've got a good school being built. We're going to have good people in. The superintendent said the most important thing to her, when talking to her, was good quality teachers, and I think we need to stay focused on that as well. Thank you.
Between now and Election Day, I'm going to continue my door-to-door activities. I'm going to continue talking to people face-to-face. I'm going to continue talking to people by email, by letter, whatever medium is comfortable to them. I'm going to continue meeting with state and local officials. I meet with local officials on a regular basis. I think the first and third Wednesday. I'm still sitting on the town council. I'm still sitting on the master plan committee. I'm in contact with folks on the school committee and the superintendent. I think she hears from me a little bit more than she would prefer. But she's a gracious host, and I love talking to her about education, which is one of my passions. Should I be fortunate enough to win the nomination and win the election, I will begin meeting with the folks on Beacon Hill, who will become my next colleagues. I've spoken to Jim Valley about getting the introductions, and he's graciously offered to bring me around, and I think one of the things that is vitally important is to build relationships, because these are the people you are going to be working with. These are the people you are going to be asking to help you and assist you with an endeavor, and you need to build those relationships. My career in the law and my career on the school committee and the town council has been about building relationships and building bridges, and that's what I'm going to continue to do to get me a jump start in that job on Beacon Hill.
That concludes the question and answers, gentlemen. Mr. Roy, I believe you can begin.
Can I stand again?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been what I've been looking forward to for so long in this race, an opportunity to talk to the community about what's important in this race. This election is about the type of government that we want and how we're going to come together as citizens to make Massachusetts a better place to work and to live. And my parents and my grandparents instilled values in me that I keep with me to this day. Work hard, treat others with respect, get a good education, and make a better life for your children. Well, I'm concerned about that last aspect because our country is not affording us the opportunities to make the better life for our children. That's going to be a priority for me in this job on Beacon Hill. I have 3 themes that I'm running under. Jobs and the economy. We need to get jobs and the economy back on track. We need to get America back on track. We need to restore that American dream for our children. We need to provide a quality education for our children, and I'm going to work hard to see that that happens. And we need civility in government. We need people coming together for the common good. We cannot go down a polarized path because we're never going to get anything done. We have to sit back and think about what's important for others in this world. My wife and I moved to Franklin in 1986. We were looking for a community with good public schools, parks and green space, clean air and water, well-maintained streets and parks and transportation system, public safety, and active senior center. Franklin had all these attributes, and I'm running for this position to make sure that we keep that commitment to all of these areas and we make this a great community, and I want the same for Medway also. I'm overwhelmed by the support that I've received in this race. Endorsements from town leaders, friends, neighbors, groups, and fellow citizens. It's that energy and that enthusiasm that has fueled my drive, and I'm going to continue to go. Sleep is overrated, I tell you. You can do a lot on 2 hours of sleep a night. And to do this, we need to work together. And I think the best example of working together is the ride I'm going to be doing this weekend. This will be my 10th Pan Mass Challenge. That ride has taught me that when a group of people get together and they're committed to a unified mission, they can indeed change the world and make it a better place. I want to bring that spirit to Beacon Hill, and I'm going to ride through Franklin next Saturday morning. Please come down to the Remington School between 7:30 and 8:30. I'll try to get there in that time frame. Help me bring common sense, compassion, and commitment to efficiency and high performance on Beacon Hill. And please, I ask for your vote on Thursday, September 6th. Thank you very much. It's been a great start.
Thank you, Chief. You know, I just want to say thank you to all my supporters. I tell you what, when we had our kickoff party, Jerry Leone came and said, "This is a team effort." And he's like the old man, you know. He's a chip off the block. This is a team effort, and everyone has to get involved, and everyone has to work. And I want to tell you something. I see Jack in the back of the room, and Curtis, and these guys and all the other people that help me. This is a team effort. I need your help in order to keep doing what I'm doing. But I do tell you, I take a lot more out of this than putting into it, and we are putting a lot of time into it. So thank you so much to my staff and my team that have been working with me. Also, I want to thank Jim Valley. Jeff and I are both probably talking to him regularly. He also offered to me the same kindness he offered to Jeff. I will take you through. I will introduce you to everybody around the State House. I will let you know what you need to do and how you need to do it. So I'm looking forward to be able to take that and carry on Jim's legacy. You know, this school would not have been anything but for him. Our Chapter 70 funding and our Chapter 90 funding and all our funds that we get from the state all come from Jimmy, and he has set a high hurdle. I actually called him a name and I said, "You're a bleep," because we're going to have a difficult time keeping up with what you've been doing here for us, because he's been doing so much for us. And I want to make sure that, first I want to take care of what's going on locally. I need to take care of what our people locally are telling us. We make sure we have a balanced budget here in town, make sure we have as much matching funds coming in as we can, and making sure that our roads are good, and OPEB. You know, OPEB is such a big issue. It's, you know, it's town, county, and state. So we got to make sure we deal with OPEB. You know, if I have the privilege of being your state representative, I got to tell you some other, I want to be the privilege of being your state rep, but I want to tell you some other privileges that I've had. Franklin Charter Commission, to sit for a year with the Badges brothers, who are like yin and yang. One would want to do one thing and the other one would do the other thing. And all year we sat together, they would vote, one would vote one way and one would vote the other way. But to be with people like that and rub elbows and learn about the community was invaluable. I've had the pleasure of prosecuting for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for 3 years to speak for those who couldn't, and it was a great experience. If I hit the lottery, I told my wife this a few times, I would teach college and I would probably prosecute full-time, but Beacon Hill's much better than that, don't you think, Jeff? It would be much better.
As long as you're not prosecuting me.
There you go. I might have a conflict of interest, so. Being on the Franklin Democratic Town Committee for over a decade has been fantastic. Being clerk and chairman of the Finance Committee for the Norfolk County Advisory Board has been fantastic. And meeting people, like I said, Mrs. Meservey on Wachusett Street, you know, working up in the center of town 67 years ago, just fantastic. I ask for your vote for the state representative seat for Franklin and Medway, 10th Norfolk District. I will work harder than anybody. I will be accessible. I will exercise the necessary courtesy, courage, and compassion to make you proud you voted for me. So I ask for your vote. Good night and God bless.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to Chief Submergian for being the moderator tonight, and to all the gentlemen from the press for coming and answering the questions.
All right, so, I would call him Sherelle, release agreement. Now we see agreement.
All right, Ken, take care of yourself. All right, I might need that, so come on in. I need that. Thank you. We'll get a little sandwich and we'll get a coffee.
Good question. How we do, all right?